This is Laura DeFranco, holistic physical therapist and owner of Brave Healer Productions. I'm excited to bring you my new holistic healing series where you're going to learn from the experts what it means to live fiercely alive, mind, body, and soul. I invite you now to take a breath, relax, and feel the vibe of the words my guest has to share with you today. Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode today. I'm interviewing the authors of a new book, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools for Happiness. And I cannot wait to introduce you to three of our amazing authors today. Welcome, you guys.
Hello.
Hey, nice to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. I have Miss Terri Lynn. She's an international best-selling author, speaker, and happiness coach. Terri is also a corporate trainer where she hires and trains the sales staff for the luxury brands Audi and Porsche in the Philadelphia area. Terri's goal is to help others understand the importance of putting happiness first. Accolon is the founder of Soul Strength Kung Fu, which is both a system of self-mastery and an art of bringing light to the darkness. He is a spiritual Kung Fu warrior who trains people in spiritual Kung Fu warriorship and self-mastery. He's also a single father. I also have Melissa Jirovec with me. She's a mindset strategist, international best-selling author, podcaster, and founder of Prosperity Unleashed. She's passionate about helping others disrupt their thought patterns so they can wake up from the mental inertia that keeps them from being, doing, and having the things they want. Welcome, everybody. Oh my goodness. If you guys can't already feel the power in those little bits that I just read to you, I don't know what will help you, but these are some amazing experts who have stepped up to authentically share their stories and their tools with you about reaching happiness. It's such a big, big topic. Thank you so much, first of all, to all three of you for saying yes to this and for really being brave about sharing those stories. They're amazing, and I'm so honored to be here putting this book together with you guys. I'm going to start with Terri, and here's the question, Terri. Tell me about this pursuit of happiness in terms of what it's meant for you personally, and a little bit about the chapter that you wrote.
Okay, so my pursuit of happiness started when I was a child. My older sister, my mother went to work right after I was born. I'm the youngest of five, and my sister was 12 years older than me, and she was my caretaker. I followed her everywhere. And then when she became of age and went away to school and college, and she eventually went into the convent, I was lost. I was about 6, 7 years old, and I went into a little bit of a state of depression. I cried myself to sleep, and my mother taught me the lesson of the pessimist and the optimist. And at a young age, I chose to be an optimist. And that pre-framed me for a very sad time in my life when, after a divorce, my children moved away from me, and they lived 2 hours away. And that lesson of being an optimist just came into full circle. And I made the decision I needed to be happy. And I chose happiness because I did not want my children to have an unhappy mother. And with that, it's been my destiny just to put happiness first. I look back and learn the lessons that, and see the difference that it made. You know, I can see how easily people, how our mind just takes us down that negative road, and it's so detrimental to us. And happiness, just when you're in a happy state, the vibration, it just gives you the happiest version of whatever could be in the outcome of it. And that's what I've discovered in my life, and that's what my mission is, to help others to see that.
I love how you're talking about learning about positivity early. I wish that I had been having those conversations earlier. I mean, who wouldn't, right? Who wouldn't wish that? And it's all meant to be. Every little single step of the journey has brought me to this place where I really prioritize positivity. I know that all of us are going to talk about mindset today. all of us are going to have ways to talk about this practice that we practice. And so thank you for talking about how that served you moving forward, Terri, because we're all going to have things. Oh my gosh, this year alone, right? Like if we could be happy this year, we can do anything, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. What else do you want to say about that?
Well, I train salespeople, and in sales, it's super important to stay positive. And the mindset, you talked about mindset, and it's really, really easy for salespeople to get down because it's so much negativity. If they sell 3 out of every 10 people they meet, that's a good job. And, it's really hard to get that. And that's why I enjoy, I hire people, they spend a month with me. And so many people have told me how I've changed their life. And it's just so, so rewarding that I can take the lessons that I've learned in life and in sales. I've been in sales for over 30 some years. And to be able to pass that on to people just starting out on a new career path is just so, so rewarding.
Thank you, Terri. Accolon Hollingsworth, tell me a little bit about this same question. So, what is the pursuit of happiness meant to you? And tell us about this beautiful chapter that you wrote.
Happiness for me is, as a spiritual Kung Fu warrior, it's a sacred responsibility. So there's the individual benefit of creating your happiness. For me, it's a contribution to humanity. So it's one of the central themes in spiritual Kung Fu warriorship. There's struggle that humanity is going through. There's a lot that is not enjoyable, and there's a lot that is enjoyable. And there's abuse culture. There are major obstacles major obstacles to happiness. And to me, if I create happiness in myself, it exists in humanity, and that's my focus. So it's a contribution. It goes beyond me. Now, I enjoy it, but it's also a contribution. And keeping the focus on my happiness being a contribution makes it easier for me to be happy. It really is a leverage in the mind to help overcome a lot of the obstacles that get in the way. So that the more unhappiness I see in the world, in humanity, the more of an imperative it becomes for me to create happiness and then share that outward. Whereas some people, it's understandably, it can be, and by the way, I tend to look around as I talk. I'm a very visual person. So I think about what I mean to look at you when I'm talking to you.
It's hard on Zoom.
Aspect. Anyway, some of us feel guilty. Oh, if there's suffering in the world, what right do I have to be happy? To me, it's the opposite. I have more of a responsibility to create happiness and put that outward.
I love this. If you guys see me looking down, it's because I'm madly scribbling down quotes and notes from you brilliant people. So if I'm creating happiness for me, I'm creating it for humanity. I think that's one of the basic ideas here. And, when you look out, like Accolon said, that's not a reason to go in the other direction. It's a reason to cultivate it for yourself even more, right? And share those high vibes. I love that. Is there anything else you want to say about that, Accolon?
Yeah, I mentioned that it creates leverage to overcome the obstacles to happiness. I mentioned the word imperative. It's like responsibility, a sacred responsibility. So that it negates the guilt that one could feel towards, what right do I have to be happy if others are suffering? The dynamic in that leverage is, I can explain it like this. So in the context of love. So, this applies to people in general, but I'll put it in context as a parent. When I am extending my love out of my heart to my child, the focus is providing that love for my child, sharing that love and caring with my child. But guess what? On the way, that love passes through me on the way to my child or whoever it is that I'm loving on. So by focusing on the contribution of that love, I feel love in the process. It passes through me. So I benefit that way. It's the same dynamic with this creating love or creating happiness as a contribution to those around me and to humanity and the world in general. You end up experiencing more happiness with that focus of it going outward. It passes through you, you're generating it, but when you generate it, you experience it. It's a powerful experience.
I love that. That is true for any feeling that you choose. You know, with awareness, we get the choice. We're going to talk about awareness in a minute or two. And if y'all listen to that inner voice, and the inner voice is saying something like, you know, what right do I have to be happy? Just kind of thinking about what Accolon was saying. Well, actually, if you take it as that sacred responsibility, it completely flips that a 180 and helps you understand that you have not only every right, but really we're counting on you. We're counting on each other to take this on, right? So thank you, Accolon.
One super quick thing with that.
Sure.
So it's, if you look at in the world right now, in humanity, there are those of us who are making things less enjoyable rather than more enjoyable. And that tends to come from out of an unhappiness. People that are happy, what they put out into the people around them in their interactions and what they put out into the world, the culture and society, is more enjoyable if you're creating out of happiness. That's why I say sacred responsibility. It's an enjoyable responsibility, but it's when you create happiness in yourself, what you contribute, what you create makes things better rather than worse.
Yes, no doubt. Thank you. Melissa, talk to me about this same thing. What's the pursuit of happiness meant to you personally? And tell us about your amazing chapter.
Sure. So for me, it began after a traumatic event. I became a caregiver, and for a long time, I've been living from the outside in. So I was expecting my circumstances to give me happiness. And when it didn't, I waited and I waited and I was waiting for something. And I realized after I became a caregiver that nothing was going to change anytime soon. Like things were going to keep being hard. And it was up to me to create the happiness that I wanted to see. And that was a really huge kind of aha moment for me, because I was caring for somebody else as well, and I wanted them to be happy. And much like Accolon was talking about, I felt a sense of accountability. If I wanted to be happy, I had to give that to myself as a gift. And so in my chapter, I talk about setting goals as a way of creating a life that makes you happy. So working towards things that are going to make you happy and ultimately creating a life that makes you happy. And being aware of the fact that there are kind of two aspects of our reality: the things that we can't control, our circumstances, and the things that we can control, which is our response, our thoughts, our feelings, our decisions, our actions, which ultimately contribute to creating our circumstances.
Happiness is a gift you give yourself. I loved what you just said. And no one else is going to be giving you that gift. I mean, we feel it when other people say things, do things, when things go right, when this happens or that happens. But ultimately, if we're unhappy, we're the only one, right? What else do you want to say about that? I think that's so important.
Well, I love what you just said, because you said nobody can give that to you. And I think we're often looking at outward things for happiness when it's a state of being that you create for yourself. Other people can make you feel good, which I actually think is more joy than happiness. But happiness is a state of being that you choose for yourself, and it's not dependent on other things. We don't always choose it, right? It's kind of a journey where sometimes you choose it and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you choose it. But it can't come from anything other than yourself. It's not going to come from your partner. It's not going to come from your children. You have to give that to yourself.
Well, so wait a minute. What's the difference between joy and happiness, please?
Well, I think joy is something that you experience from outward things. So it can be hobbies, it can be people you love, it can be circumstances like a promotion, or you're at the beach and you love the sunshine. It's an emotion that you feel that's given to you from outside sources. Happiness is a state of being over time. And I believe it was somebody mentioned it about vibration, right? So when you're happy, you're putting out a good vibration. You can get that from joy, but happiness has to come from yourself, and then you bring it, like it was said, to relationships, into your job, and to everything else.
So those people outside of you and circumstances outside of you are vibrating in happiness, which is bringing the joy vibe to you. I like to talk about this because I think sometimes we don't go deep when we really talk about the what this is and how people think about it. And it can really help, right? Having these conversations out loud is an awareness tool. So thank you guys for going there with me and playing in the sandbox. So Mel, I'm actually going to stick with you here for a minute as we shift to this next question, which is about that awareness. It's funny to me to ask the question, how important is awareness when it comes to happiness? Because I think it's foundational. It's a must, right? But everybody here has a way that they practice, and there are so many different opportunities to do that. So talk to me about how important awareness has been in your life with this happiness journey, and how you personally practice.
Sure. Awareness, I think it's really a skill that needs to be developed. And when you start to develop awareness, you start to develop the ability to determine, what is it that makes me feel good? What is it that aligns with me? What is it that calls to me? And what is it that's not beneficial? And when you can actually recognize what it is that aligns with you and start pouring your time, energy, and money into those things, that's going to get you on a path towards happiness. But a lot of times I think we're distracted. We're distracted by entertainment. We're distracted by chaos. We're distracted by the things people are telling us. We're distracted by a messy house. We're distracted by all kinds of things. And so we're working all the time and we're exhausted because we are exerting a lot of effort, but it's not taking us towards things that are going to make us happy, which is not taking us towards a future that's going to make us happy. And so for me, it's very important for me to have moments to myself in silence every single day to quiet the noise, because there's a lot of noise, especially this year. There's a whole ton of noise. And if you live in that noise, self-awareness is impossible. It's too loud. And so having moments of silence. Oh, go ahead.
I just had something to add to what you were saying about the outward, getting lost in all the things that we have to do. We get lost in the material world. Mm-hmm. The awareness is becoming aware that I am not my body. I am not my mind. My body and mind is a tool. And that's the awareness that I try to live with on a daily basis. And that's what helps me just to be happy with what is.
Yes, for sure. And the awareness practice, I think, is moment to moment. And it depends on what is happening in your moment. And when you get to that, you guys are making me think of something we were talking about in the other interviews. Sometimes it's really hard to jump from grief to happiness, grief to joy. There's a huge gap there. And so sometimes the entry point is just moving to that quiet space that Mel's talking about. Just moving, just closing your eyes and taking a breath, right? And being in the breath. And that's good enough. That is raising vibration, even as you do that. We think we have to jump all the way over there. And sometimes that feels completely impossible. Mm-hmm. Mel, what else do you want to say about that coming inward?
Well, I also think it's really important to recognize that the importance of nuance, right? We tend to think of things in extremes. Either, like, if something bad is happening, there's no way you could experience joy. And if something good is happening, there's no way you should be sad. And that's just not how it is. you can have something like hard, you can be going through something hard and still find moments of joy. Just like you can be going through a good time in your life and still kind of have a struggle a little bit. And that is something that is just part of us. And it's a beautiful thing that life is just not black and white like that. And so journaling for me was really a fantastic way of being able to get those emotions out and reflect on those nuances. You know, things are going really well for us, but I'm still struggling not going outside as much as I'd like. Or things are incredibly hard right now, but I did exercise with my daughter today and that brought me joy. And I think that exploration has been really powerful for me.
I love that. Journaling is one of my tools, my go-to tools, just to shift the energy, to move some of that stuff from the inside to the outside and shift a little bit. What an incredibly powerful awareness tool it is to look at those words and say something like, whoa, do I think that? And you don't even realize sometimes, right? Until it's out of you. Thank you, Mel. Accolon, talk to me a little bit about your awareness practice and how important awareness is for this happiness journey.
It's essential. And it's in my practice of spiritual Kung Fu warriorship, it's in the moment. Awareness forefront in everything I'm doing. So you have so much that's affecting you within your own being. You have layers of accumulative experience from birth to now on multiple levels: your mind, your heart, your ego, your body, your soul. And not just your experiences, but your interpretations of your experiences, decisions you've made, choices you made, beliefs you've been constructing, all creating a mental framework that you navigate your moments in. And so, I mean, you are the part of the present moment emerging. And when you're aware of what's driving the bus at that moment, so to speak, metaphorically, you know, what's driving you, what you're choosing from, you can choose in your favor for your happiness. Rather than, if you're not aware, then you can have multiple layers of things that are affecting you that are not helpful to you, that you're not aware of, so you can't do anything about that. You can't make the choice. Every moment, there's many different ways you can think about the experience, and your thoughts, you can choose multiple variety of thoughts and actions. If you have awareness, then you have clarity to move from, so that your thoughts and your actions in that moment are in your favor, as I say. And then self-care. So self-care is a theme in all of what we're talking about, right? Awareness is important for that self-care. What self-care do you need? If you're on default, you don't know what self-care you need. If you're just on default of what your requirements of the day are, what your schedule is, your responsibilities, the role you have to play, you don't know what your self-care is, and you're not able to apply it in the moment, again, in your favor. So that awareness is at the forefront. I've been telling my students for years, awareness is the first step to liberation. And you want to be liberated in the moment to choose the best for yourself, for your happiness. So yeah, awareness is key. It's a little important in what I do.
Just a little bit. Oh, I get you. And seriously could talk about this one topic probably all day long because of how foundational liberation, what a great word. And Melissa said, she talked about goals. And for me, it was like, unless I knew what I wanted and how I wanted to feel, none of those choices mattered as much. I had to also know what I truly wanted and how I wanted to feel for my life. And it needed to be something that not everyone else taught me. It needed to come from that place inside of me that was, you know, and you sit down for the first time in your life and ask yourself, so what do I really want? And you are like, I don't freaking know. Like, That's great, right? It's okay. Like, it's perfect. That's almost, I think, the beginning of the journey is just remembering to ask yourself that question, and that your answer that comes from your deepest, truest desires, not from anybody else. That's the one, right? And then we can make choices that align with that instead of what everyone else has taught us we should want, that's supposed to make us happy. Oh my gosh, you guys, get me started on this. I'm telling you. Terri, you are next. Yes, please answer this, because, Miss Terri here with her website, Think Happy, Be Happy, is all about this.
I certainly am.
We want to know what you think about, and tell us about your practice, your personal practice.
Okay, first, I'd just like to touch on the goals, because goals to me are so super important. It's like a navigation system. If you don't have a destination set, you're not going to get directions. But when you have a goal and you are aware and you're in tune, you get directions. Divine navigation is what I call it. And it's been very apparent to me in my life. But as far as my practice, I started meditating, I guess about 13, 14 years ago. And that started I've been practicing happiness my whole life, but the inward goal, the inward awareness, you talked about journaling. I do gratitude journals. I've been meditating, and it's taken me on such a journey, layers upon layers upon layers over the years, just wash away. And the meditation system I bought into, they call it a, the word escaped me, but anyway, new door. So it takes you to a level where you're like hyper, and then it's like, whew, you release. And it's like you can handle so much more. And the first thing that I gained from the meditation was singularity of thought. It got rid of all the noise in your head. And it's been able to make me more aware of what I'm thinking. Now, as Melissa was saying, and as you, Laura, mentioned, grief, there are certain things, some days are harder than others, but the more aware, the more attuned I get with myself, the more strength I have from within to handle what comes. And yeah, there's days where I stop myself and say, whoa, where's that thought taking you? And, and you change it. So I've become more aware of those things. But it's such a different place than I was 10 years ago, and it feels so great.
I hear you. I would say the same thing. Yes, to all of you, awareness is liberation, it's freedom, it's choices, it's living your best, most awesome life. Thriving truly comes from awareness. And I actually don't believe, I believe that you can thrive in any moment, even the ones you're grieving in. Mel, you said something about it's always two things all the time. And we always have things going on that are really joyful and sometimes really not. And all of those things kind of swirling around. And you may have people looking at you a little sideways when you're, skipping around the house, whistling. This reminds me of Accolon's chapter and his son watching him and saying, Dad, you're always happy, and I just think that's so awesome, because he was going through an incredibly difficult challenge at the time, yet he made those choices to skip around the kitchen, and make his spaghetti or whatever you were making, Accolon. And that's because we do have control over that in the moment if we're awake in that moment and choose it, right? What a big, juicy gift, seriously, that we all get. And we have so many moments.
Real quick.
Yeah, please.
So my boy was in third grade. I'm a single dad. I think we've done that. But many times I feel really good, despite with so many reasons not to. And I wish people would, I often think, I wish people felt this good. I have all these reasons to be miserable and I'm not, but I feel really good and I want other people to. Well, my boy especially, he's watching me at my example. And this boy has seen me grieve, he's seen me sad, he's seen me cry, he's seen me angry, he's seen me frustrated. But he watches how I work with those emotions, always towards feeling better with what I have inside of me and how I'm using that awareness you mentioned. Like, it matters what you do with your mind, your heart, your body, your soul. What are you doing with those things? Well, this moment that you referred to, I'm cooking dinner, my boy's doing homework, and I'm thinking about things that are just, so many things in my life are not how I want them to be. And one being, yeah, we might be homeless next month. I don't know, we'll see. And I'm feeling really good dancing around the kitchen, cooking spaghetti for my kid. I say, because this happens so many times, I feel good despite the odds. If I had a nickel for every time I feel happy, I'd be rich. And that was genuine of what I was experiencing. But I say things, I live out loud for my kid, so he gets the example. And I was surprised. His response was, you definitely be happy, Dad. You're happy or you definitely rich. You're happy all the time. That floored me, because I'm like, this kid's seen me be all these unhappy things, but his overall idea or impression of me isn't unhappiness, it's happiness. And it's because what we do with the simultaneous enjoyable and not enjoyable things happening in experience. You mentioned, Melissa. And that's what the chapter I wrote is how to be happy through the tough stuff. Because
well, and you talk about sacred responsibility. If you have children and they are watching you and they're vibing you and feeling you, right? And so that's, I think, been the biggest wake up call for me, is if I am standing in a room and one of my kids is there, who am I being right this moment? Am I beaming out love, gratitude, joy, happiness, or am I somewhere else up in here that is not doing that? And just in that moment, and how powerful that is, you want that so badly for your children. So you better be it first, right? It's so important. Accolon, I want to stay with you for this last question. I want all of you to answer today. You know, there are people listening to us today and they get it and they love it, and they're still struggling. They're still struggling. We've had such an incredibly difficult year, speaking of being happy through the tough stuff. What would you offer them? Just words of support, kind of an entry point to this journey that might be the most simple?
Well, simple. So it helps to focus more on what you are in the world than what you get from the world. And in that, you, with your own quality of being, determine happiness. So in other words, instead of trying to get happiness from the world and from the people around you, which when you do that, your reality, your happiness is based on what people are and are not doing, which is up to them. Okay. Instead, you focus on generating happiness, creating it and generating it. That simple dynamic is a really good starting point.
Yes. And this is a lot of what you do with your spiritual Kung Fu warriorship. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, I'm going to sum up as quickly as I can on that.
Okay.
I preface that because I start with a childhood thing here, but it's going to. When I was a boy, I looked around the society, the culture I was living in, and I saw, starting from my own house, alcoholic household and domestic violence. And then outward into the culture, I was hearing complaints, what I was referred to when I was a boy as the war of men and women. And then I was learning about racism, and then there was bullying, and all these problems, all these obstacles of happiness. And I wanted to help heal all that, but I didn't know how. I was a kid, Well, when I got to be a teenager, I met my Kung Fu teacher. And that path that led my life's work, which is all tied into spiritual Kung Fu warriorship and tied into happiness. But I learned how to heal those things, starting with in one's own being. And my teacher took me in as an apprentice and trained me. He gave me he gave me Kung Fu priest training. And then out of that, over the years, in applying that in my own life and in helping others apply it in theirs, I developed, for the foundation I was given, I developed into spiritual Kung Fu warriorship, which naturally became what it is. I didn't set out to set anything. I didn't set out how to be happy per se. I didn't set out how how to create a self-mastery system. I didn't set up for that specifically. It just all naturally developed into self-mastery and bringing light to the darkness, relief to suffering, health to sickness was what light to darkness means. I had this epiphany of all these lofty goals to help society and help the culture, from the individual outward. And I had this major epiphany a few years ago. All of these lofty goals, sorry, I'm hitting puberty, my voice just cracked. Anyway, all of it boiled down to this: removing barriers to enjoyment. All of the helping to transcend abuse culture and mature into humanity's spiritual magnificence, all of these big lofty things, clearing obstacles to enjoyment. And when you do that, the more you do that, guess what do you experience? Happiness. So I think you were asking also, were you asking how do people learn this or what?
You did. That was a great explanation, and just a little bit more of how you developed your spiritual Kung Fu warriorship. Yeah. Anything else there you want to wrap up with?
Well, I developed a training for this.
Yes. Okay.
From application, myself and my students, but it used to be you had to live near me and train in person. And now you don't. I've developed an infrastructure for training in this, in spiritual Kung Fu warriorship, that is online, and you don't have to live near me to do it. And this training comes with lifetime support. So it's, because to me, it's all in the application that I want to help people with. So here's the training, and there's an online format for that, but then it's lifetime support applying the training so that you actually benefit. It's not just look at something, get some information, and then move on. So
thank you.
I'm excited. That's a recent development in the last year coming out of this pandemic.
Yes. Many of us had to pivot in that way. And that actually, I think, was a great thing for all of us to have to really think about what we were offering and how it could be delivered in a way that we could really spread it out into the world in a bigger way, right? That was a huge gift to so many of us, even though it was maybe one of the biggest challenges many of us faced was, how do I do that? But I love that. I love that you were able to do that. Terri, I'm going to move over to you and have you talk about a little words of support or advice you might give somebody listening in terms of this journey. They might still be struggling. What would you say to them?
Yeah, Laura, so many people are struggling today. And, everybody's life has been hampered around the world. So we're all in this together. But my advice would be to sit, I think, building on what Accolon said, we can generate any feeling we want. And that's sort of what my tool is in the book. My chapter's called, 10 minutes to a happier you, start your day in a positive way. And if you take 10 minutes in the morning just to sit, breathe, and just allow yourself to be, and then fill yourself intentionally with gratitude, love, happiness, whatever it is, and just sit there and dwell in it for 10 minutes. It starts that energy, again, that vibration, and it will help you. It will help you, and it sounds simple, and it is difficult, especially if you're dealing with, so many people in pain and illness. It's not easy to be happy. But if anything else, if you can't do anything else, help somebody else. That'll help generate a good feeling in you. When we help others, we give to ourselves also. But so many people struggle. And all I can say is it takes intention. You have to have that goal. You have to set that goal for yourself. Today I decide I'm going to be happy no matter what. And then you let those feelings come. And then whatever comes to you, you have to accept it. You have to see it. But you don't have to let it take over you. And that's what happens. I think we just get caught up and get taken over by all the fuss and the muss, and we forget who we are on the inside.
You're making me think of a moment I had in the kitchen with my daughter who was really sad. And she, you know how sometimes you've let that feeling sit without expressing, and you're the pressure cooker. And then all of a sudden you have no idea why you're bawling, or you're, just like volcanoes out. She was having a moment of sadness. And I remembered that probably one of the biggest gifts to help anyone with is to give them the permission to first feel it fully and then not get stuck there. That's why I was thinking about this as you were talking. Feel it fully, release it completely, and then choose something more badass like gratitude. Or, gratitude is such a powerful go-to when helping somebody else. And I was just like giving my own self a pat on the back for being a good mom, because moms and dads, they want to fix that horrible feeling for their kid, and they want to fix it right away. And so it gets very intense, like, oh, well, you could do this, or maybe we should do this. And, and I was just like, no, mom, I was talking to myself, like,
I know, as
let her know.
Parents, when your children suffer, you suffer.
Right.
And one of the hardest lessons I had to learn is when my child is suffering, I can't feel bad for him. You do what you can, send them good love, but I've got to work on getting myself, because feeling bad for them isn't helping them. And it's not helping you. When you feel better, you generate better feelings and you uplift the people around you.
Yes.
It's challenging. Talk about it like it's easy, like you snap your finger and do it. Our human emotions are so complex, but it can be done, and it's just worth putting the work in. That's what I would like. That's the message I would like to tell people. It's worth putting the work in.
Yes, we all might be talking about it like it's easy, but mind you, we've had decades of practice. And so it's not particularly easy, but the practice does work, and it's totally worth the work. It creates a life that sometimes you couldn't even imagine how good it could be when you get into that practice and you stay there. And it's why it's so important to have awesome guides. This amazing book coming out on February 11th is like that little toolkit. Mm-hmm. And it's just so exciting to have so many of you experts offering these kinds of tools. It's a really powerful book, and it's why we're here talking about it today, right? So, Melissa, what would you offer to somebody who's still struggling and needs a little bit more of an easy entry point into it?
For me, my advice would be to remember where your power is. So it can be very easy right now to feel like there's no control, to feel like you're out of control. But there's always something that you can control. You always have control of your response. It's really not what happens to you, it's how you respond that's going to pave the way to your future. And your response that's your power. Nobody can take that away from you. And so it's not easy to choose happiness in a time of difficulty. It's not easy to set goals. It's not easy to create happiness within yourself. But it's important to remember that there's always two sides of that coin. It's not easy to do things that are going to make you happy, but it's not easy to be unhappy. They're both hard. So you have to choose your heart. Which heart is going to give you a future that you want? Which heart is going to be beneficial for your health? Which heart is going to foster healthy relationships? And so whether you take action to be happy or not, it's going to be hard regardless. So what do you want to choose for yourself?
You guys, I have like 4 pages of quotes in my notebook right now, just from our last few minutes together. Your response is your power. Mm-hmm. That there's so much in that simple statement, because of course, when you're responding, you're aware in the moment to be able to respond. And we've been talking a while now about that awareness practice, which I think is incredible. You know, I know you all probably remember moments in your life where you were so up in reacting in the moment, you barely even saw yourself going there. You're all caught up in it, and you may have said something to somebody or made a decision about something or somebody before you even knew what was happening, right? And people are always saying, well, we really don't have control over much of anything, but this is the one thing, right? What else did you want to say about that, Melissa?
Well, I liked what you said about reacting and responding. And in order to respond, you have to have moments of silence. You have to take a minute to actually absorb what's going on. And so I don't think responding is possible without self-care. They are intertwined. And so if you can give yourself one gift during 2021, stop viewing self-care as a luxury and start viewing it as a crucial part of your existence, right? Because you're not going to be happy if you don't take care of yourself. So if you can change your thoughts around self-care, that's such a phenomenal gift you could give yourself during this pandemic. And where you're going to go from there is just beyond your wildest imagination.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. My goodness, definitely. Yeah,
I want to
Accolon. Yes, I saw that finger coming up there.
Well, something you and actually it's come up a few times in this conversation from a few of us. So I wanted to speak to before we ended. And that was how you mentioned grief. So we talked about experiencing, like Melissa was talking about, both at the same time, unpleasant things and pleasant things, et cetera. The nuances. And you mentioned grief, and someone else mentioned grief. My mother, who's my best friend and very integral to my family of my boy, myself, and my mom, the three of us, just died unexpectedly and suddenly right before Christmas. And I've had grief with that. And it hit me to the core, and it hasn't changed anything as far as me moving forward in life in a good way. So there's the pain, and yet the joyfulness isn't diminished. Like I have both going on. And I just wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, there is pain, and the joy, the happiness does not have to be diminished. What another super powerful few words. Y'all, we're changing the world one brave word at a time around here. And I so thank you for helping me do that. Accolon, of course, all of us are sending you our biggest love and condolences. And thank you for being here in this time of your life when, you know, that could have been taking you over. I really appreciate you. All of you, seriously, you're freaking amazing. Like, I hope you know how amazing you are. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the world and for being here to share it with everybody. Thank you, guys.
I've enjoyed hearing from all three of you today.
Me too. Likewise.
All with all of you. Thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you.
So to all of our viewers today, this amazing book is going to be released on February 11th, and I'm going to have some information down below for you. But first, Melissa, where can people come find out more about you?
Sure. So my website is the best place, melissajirovec.com. But I also hang out a lot on Instagram at MJ_mindset.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Terri?
My website is thinkhappybehappy.com. It's probably the best place. I have a Facebook page, Think Happy, Be Happy.
Great. Thank you. And Accolon, how about you?
Oh, a couple main places. One is, do have a website, innervictorypower.com, and that's the power of your inner victory, how people create inner victories and how that affects your thoughts and actions and happiness comes from that. So where that name came from, but innervictorypower.com. And there's a free preview training when you go to that as well. You can see. But also, I have you can go to my profile page in universe.com, and it's all laid out there as well. So that's another place to come check me and other people out, actually.
Yes, all of our authors, you guys. So thewellnessuniverse.com. You're also hooked up down below in the show notes to find out more about membership. Come to visit these authors' profiles and meet all of the other amazing authors and Wellness Universe members there. And again, February 11th, 2021. If you're watching before that, then there's time, because you can join us on the Circles of Inspiration page on Facebook on the 11th for a live stream book launch party. We're going to have giveaways and all kinds of fun. And if you missed that, but you're listening afterwards, well, of course, that means the book is available. So all you got to do is go down and find the Amazon link, and we'll be good to go there too. So you guys, I love to end the show in a big question. And so here it is for today. What if there is something you haven't learned yet about happiness that could change everything? Right? It's time to be brave. See you, everybody. Love what you heard today. Don't forget to drop down and hit that subscribe button, you guys, and then join me over at bravehealer.com for just a little bit more healing badassery. Have a great one.